Yo. So I said I wasn't going to do this, but y'all made me do it. Been getting a lot of questions since the cheap LS swap video. And so I'm going to show you some parts. I'm going to post links. I'll put links down in the description for these specific parts. And hopefully it helps you guys on your cheap swap. Now, a disclaimer is this video and parts list is strictly for Gen 3 LS engines. I've said that in many videos. Those are the only ones I have all this info about. I'm not real savvy with Gen 4, and I'll never care to be savvy with Gen 5. I don't have the money for Gen 5, never will. Or even if I do, I don't care to mess with it. Gen 3 LS engines start in late 90s. Well, let's get technical for all the internet people that got to know it all. LS1s started in 1997 in Corvettes. That's technically when Gen 3 LS engines started. But your truck motors started in late 99 and end in very early 2007. Those are what I consider Gen 3 LS engines because those are all I really mess with. And yes, they're not technically LS, blah, blah, we know. I call them LS. They're LS to me. I'll always call them LS. It's all the same shit. I mean, all the same stuff. Sorry. But let's start with the parts list. And like you guys saw, we got the cheap Amazon harness. I'm also doing this while I have all the stuff out for that car. I should have made this video forever ago, but here we are. So this is the cheap Amazon harness. This one is specific for drive-by cable. So if you need drive-by-wire, you need to be searching for drive-by-wire, not this one. This one is specifically for drive-by cable. It's a big difference. I'm trying to show part numbers on most of the stuff. That way, you can also search it that way. So there's that one. That's the harness. That was $136, I think. It is no different than the harness I got in here. No different than the harness in the 69 Camaro I did. No different than any of the swaps I have in my videos. Next we got, let's go to fuel pump. So like I mentioned in the cheap LS swaps, I highly recommend using an in-tank pump. If you have an old school vehicle like this, or like this, or like that, especially Chevy, Holley makes retrofit in-tank pumps that I would use. I've used them on all of the older cars that I've had swap videos for. They are expensive, but they are well worth it. They're typically for every vehicle I've seen them for, or I've used them on, they've been no less than $450. And that's a drop-in, goes in the same exact way your original sending unit would, and you wire it up to the relay, which is those two wires I got right there. You wired it up to the harness relay, and that's it. Click it on, run your fuel line, and ready to go. And it's way quieter than this bad boy. This is what I had on the Cuda when the very first time I got it running. And it was louder than the exhaust, and the exhaust stops like right there. It's just buzzing the entire time it's running, super loud. But if you don't care, this is a good option to go with. I got this is a legit Walbro pump. I got it off of Amazon. I'll post that link as long as I can still find it in my recent orders. And then if you run this, you need this. If you go with the in-tank pump from Holley, you don't need this because it's internally regulated already. But you can use this if you want as a secondary deal because it's also a filter. But this is a Corvette filter regulator. Very simple. It goes this way. So single goes to your engine. These two go back to the tank. The bigger one, which is this one, is your send, and the smaller one is your return. you have to hook that return up. I tried not hooking it up on the OBS swap I did, and it completely messed up the fuel pressure. It was like 80 pounds of fuel pressure, even though it was going through the regulator. It was still pushing 80 pounds of fuel pressure, and it was running horribly, obviously. These are the oxygen sensors I use specifically for these cheap swaps or cheap harnesses. These have the correct plug for the O2 sensor plug. The other ones, you'll see a bunch of other ones, but it's a completely different plug, so you need those specifically. I haven't had any issues with these. These are what I have on the Cuda, and these are what I've used on any vehicle that I've used an Amazon harness on. Next, we got the mass airflow sensor. This is super cheap on Amazon. It is 5-pin. Get to it. It's 5-pin. Cheap. Using it right there. I've used it on all the other swaps. And then we have the throttle cable. This is also 20 bucks or so. It's the same one I got right there. So the only, let's see if we can show you the computer. No, it's all gone. But I'll post a link to an eBay site or seller where you can get a ready to go computer. It's best to email them first on a computer and just be very specific. Say, like, this is a bone stock 4.8. That's actually a 5.3 computer, or a computer set up for a 5.3, but there's a whole reason for that. But anyways, just say, hey, I got a stock 5.3 with stock injectors, just stock cam, 373 rear end, blah, blah, blah. Just be as specific as you can. Letting them know about the rear end will help your speedometer on those cheap digital gauges from the video I posted a couple days ago. Spark plug wires, these are the ones I use. They're usually when you use those aftermarket S10 shorty headers, or for me, any aftermarket header really that's tight fitting like that, you have to use angle plugs or angle wires. These are 75 bucks. There's also a cheap set, I believe are like 25, 30 bucks that I had on the Cuda before these, and those fit really well too. You just have to make sure they're angled. They can't be straight, because obviously that's not gonna, a straight spark plug wire isn't gonna work. I'll post a link to those. I'll post a link to these headers. These headers are kind of specific to the vehicle, but if you have a vehicle where the headers are stupid expensive, like they would be for that, I believe they'd be like $700 for custom specific headers for an LS and a Vega. Obviously, Mopar, they don't make them, so I just grabbed these for cheap. And by cheap, I believe they were like 200 bucks. I don't remember 100%. I'll try to find the link. It should still be in my recent Amazon orders. But just take a little hammer to them in spots that you need to, and they fit nice and tight and snug right there. I can't help you on air intake. This is a cheap eBay one that isn't as cheap as it used to be anymore because they've gotten so popular. I believe these are like 75 bucks now when they were 40 bucks. I will post a link to that too. I can't help you on accessories. So this is something I should have mentioned in the cheap LS swap video, is the accessories are completely dependent on your vehicle hood clearance. Most people in smaller cars like this, you won't be able to get away with the stock truck accessories because the alternator will sit about there. Your truck intake sits about there. So that is completely dependent on your vehicle, and you'll have to search that out and find it yourself. I went with this setup from ICT because it just looked good. I spent $700 on this entire front bracket setup with the pump and the pulley and the alternator and the water pump and the water pump spacers. So I can't help you there. I can't help you with radiator hoses because that's also specific to your vehicle. You just have to find something that works. Let's go with fuel line fittings. So these are just the barb fitting to where you can just run cheap rubber EFI hose. I would not recommend doing that, as I'm going to be switching to PTFE line, which is basically AN line. It's super easy to mess with, super easy to put together. This is what the cheaper EFI hose is done. It doesn't leak, but obviously at some point it will. So I'll be switching that out eventually. I'm going to wait till it starts leaking because I don't feel like changing that out anytime soon. I just enjoy driving the car. What else? I might be forgetting something and you might be asking me and I can't hear you. Trans cooler, I can't help you out there because that's dependent on your standards. I'll post a link to this one. This one's great. I've mentioned it in many of my videos. I'll use it on any vehicle I ever swap or drive in general, old school wise. There's $150. Also comes with an electric fan. It's just not on there because it gets plenty of airflow through that big old grill. What else? Intake. I cobbled together an LS1 intake. That's completely dependent on what you want. I think that's it. Oh, knock sensors. Do we got knock sensors yet? No. So I'll post a link to knock sensors that I use off of Amazon. They're cheap. I've been running them in this one for well over a year now, and I haven't had any issues. No codes or anything. But also it's hit or miss. You could buy them and have codes, so don't blame me. I'm just a messenger. But I think that's about it. I'm sorry these videos aren't me dressed up in a clown suit trying to make you laugh the entire time. I just try to make them educational and straight to the point. That's just a cheap eBay radiator. Once again, solely dependent on what vehicle you have. Let's see. So we did wiring harness, we did computer, we did fuel system, mass airflow, trans cooler, air intake, filter regulator. I showed you guys a video of the cheap gauges. If you haven't seen that, go check that one out. I believe that is it. I'm sure once I end this video and I go in there and start uploading it, I'm gonna remember. That's just a cheap Summit fan. Works great. Nothing special. No shroud. Haven't needed it. Don't need one. I've actually never used one unless it was already on the vehicle when I got it, but that's rare. I believe that is it. I'm just trying to make sure I got all the basics for you guys that have been asking me specific questions about parts. If you do need sensors, so your map sensor, your cam sensor, your crank sensor, your IAC, your TPS, I highly recommend only getting AC Delco. It's more expensive, but there's a reason why. I would not get the cheap Amazon sensors that are $20 for the pair. This is actually an AC Delco one. That's your IAC, and then the one right below it is your TPS. AC Delco only is what I would recommend. I believe that is it. So if you got any more questions, hopefully I have the answers. That should be just your typical list for your cheaper. You can't say cheap because they're not cheap anymore. Not cheap as they used to be. I've said it a million times. Gen 3 LS engines are your cheapest options for an LS swap. Solely dependent on your wants and likes. You can make them stupid expensive if you want, making the accessories all pretty, engine all pretty, camming the engine. This is specifically for a bone stock Gen 3 LS engine to get it running. Nothing more than that. If you want more than that, you gotta do some more Googling yourself and find what you want. There is nothing else to show, I believe. So if I'm forgetting something, let me know in the comments. I like I said, I have to start asking you guys to like and subscribe since I'm monetized. And this old girl needs some new sheet metal, if you can't tell. Really needs suspension. But anyways, I hope this helps you guys out. Got any questions? Once again, comment down low. I'm sorry I'm not making you laugh the entire video. That's just not what I do. Yeah, so I'll see you guys probably on the next video of the Vega. That thing's been a pain, but I'll see y'all next time.